I always remember of the old days of the Ambassador cars and the Premier Padminis with those fans. Remember those fans in those cars? And what have we now seen, the changes that we're seeing? The two-wheelers, the Lambretta, the Vijay Super, and now the kinds we're seeing, the Smart. So thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this so important, one of the automobile hubs of India in Chennai. And that's why this is so important by way of context. I'm Ashutosh Sinha. I'm one of the, and there's Varun Jain, my colleague. And so it's a very important day for an important conversation, Varun.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And what a way and what a place to have a conversation around automobile and technology. It has reshaped, it has transformed the whole industry, and data is driving efficiencies in the automobile sector. I think we will be having a solid round of discussion today about how Industry 4.0 is going to transform automobile industry.
So you've hit the nail on the head, Varun, absolutely, because the opportunity that technology leaders, and I just don't mean the industry leaders who are focused on technology, even those which are beyond, I would immediately point to you in this situation, who are trying to imagine the change that could be done, and hence the final output that consumers can get and experience, that how that could be impacted. So that role that technology leaders will play will be so important in shaping the product.
Forefront, in enabling automobile companies to kind of bring a differentiation in their products and services. So the automobile that we used to see maybe a couple of decades back, that is not now the case, and everyone is looking to inculcate new technologies in the automobiles. So yeah, Ashu, we should get the discussion rolling then.
Not just sipping coffee, that doesn't make it easier. Maybe planning for years, digitization, and the kind of products that, or what the Industry 4.0 could do. Enhance productivity, bring efficiencies. Whatever digitization efforts have happened, take that to scale. That scale becomes so important for Indian companies, the startups, and also the Indian arm of global companies, all of them. So let's start with the questions. And I'd like to come to you, Srivats, first with you. Some fundamental changes that are being seen in the data-driven approach to building or the input from your vantage, from your perch, the input that goes into the vehicles of tomorrow, if I may just stick to that for the moment.
One thing is I remember there was a study that McKinsey did for ACMA maybe about 13 years back, 15 years back, where they said future is electronics, and I checked that number, and unfortunately it's because of the way ACMA collects data, the number hasn't moved. So the difference, what's happened is they were looking at electronics companies, but whereas nowadays electronics is then every product. So lighting products have electronics, it doesn't count, it's become all pervasive. And software is very similar to that. Really, some of the technologies which have come in recent times, both from a safety angle, partly regulatory, part of it looking at what is coming, like ADAS, for example, connectivity, the amount of software elements which are being brought on stream in vehicles is significant. I think the number of lines of code are more than what you have on an aeroplane. So significant amount of
software involvement has gone in, and from that also the data points, collection points which also give feedback to the vehicle manufacturer about how the end consumer is using the vehicle. That has been a major change that's taken place. From a societal viewpoint, smartphones are all pervasive, and so for the end customer, increasingly the vehicle or vehicles, much as OEMs may not like this, the vehicle is becoming like a big mobile phone on wheels. So there's a big change. It's a lifestyle it's a lifestyle product, and so people like to bring in the other elements of their life into the vehicle. That has been part of it, but a lot of technology, especially on automation, while it's not ADAS has not gone all the way, and probably in the short term will not go very far in India. The enablement of the ability to enable it and to use it as a safety function is something which is increasingly coming on stream. So I would say there's been a transformation if you look at the last 10 years, where things which used to be mechanical became electrical, and now it's all becoming a lot more software driven. A lot of algorithms which are being written to manage systems better, the engine management systems or battery management systems. All this is part of the technological changes which have taken place, which are driving software in vehicles and will probably continue to do so in the near term.
Yeah, as I'll just put a point here. Sure. As Mr. Srivats rightly told that how is this influencing the auto car makers to design a car, is that we need to first agree to a point that we, from this continent point of view, buying a house and buying a car is considered as most auspicious and luxurious thing as a first step. The moment we buy a car, it becomes integral part of our family. People start to own that brand. So with that as a starting point, earlier people used to have only one requirement, that the car should have fuel efficient, less expensive in service, all those stuff and all. But today it's not like that. It's more of a software driven vehicles which customer is demanding. So I think the journey has started where the technological partners have started to do those journey mapping in terms of identifying the personas, traveling in the journey of understanding what exactly the customer wants and how do we do this customer segmentation and simplify this journey. So therefore, as you rightly mentioned, there are hundred thousands of codes written in a vehicle today's scenario, but going forward it will increase multiple fold. That's how the entire need for designing a vehicle, including the future, not just from an aesthetic point of view, but also from sustainability, the safety, security is also very, very important in the future of automobile industry.
Just one point what Srivats was mentioning,
sure.
The content of electronics and software. One example, real-time example, we have alternators. There's a conventional alternator which goes into the ICE vehicles. Now from the alternators, now we are having integrated belt starter generator with 48 volt solution. So the conventional alternator, there's a mechanical and electrical part with low level of electronics. And with this 48 volts integrated belt starter generator, we are having 40% electronics content and also 1 million codes of the algorithms for this thing, which has software built in with cyber security and everything built in. And this is used for all the hybrid vehicles, the mild hybrid vehicles. So the level of the transformation from conventional alternator to this new alternator is a significant shift towards electronics and software.
So Mr. Jayakumar, I'll just come back to you. You lead Valeo in India. So how are companies which are placed in India, which have operations in India, helping their global counterparts to build their innovation pipeline when it comes to Industry 4.0?
See, first of all, I would classify into two things. One is on the manufacturing, and I'll come to the R&D center also. So on the manufacturing, see, globally, as a Valeo from France, it is headquartered in France. So we are kind of a top-down approach. Like we have the systems already. There, for example, the MEA system, which is a manufacturing execution system, we are implementing on all the new lines, new investments. It is integrated with the system. So there's no need for any manual calculation of the OE or overall equipment effectiveness. So you get the efficiency of the line real time. So there's no requirement of end of the shift somebody calculates manually. It's everything as real time. You get the output, and there's a reaction from the supervisor, and also there's less supervision. Not only that, this is also integrated with our SAP, and the production booking also. Earlier it used to be at the end of the line, so every batch we can do the production booking, and the bill of material is flushed from the system, and that's totally automated. So this is one. Then also we have the EWS, which is electronic workstation, where earlier it was all manual work instructions. This is all digital now. So the checklists are digital, and the operator, he has a ID card, and only that operator will be allowed to access that, and his skill level also will be visible in that, and any updation of those documents also is automatic centrally from the industrial department. They'll drive, so there's no mix-up of old documents and new documents. So it will be on current and live. So this is in the manufacturing. Then we also have the EBTT, which is electronic bill to truck. For the for the customer order is received, and entire thing is automated, backend for the production in the shop floor. Then we also have the electronic reorder, ERO we call it, and integrated with the web EDI, which is for the supplier. So from our system, the supplier is he can see that online, and then he will produce and he will input this, and there's an advance shipping notice, and the entire thing of inventory will be visible, digitally visible across the supply chain departments, and they will. So this is avoids a lot of errors, and there's a lot of better inventory accuracy, and also it helps in planning the whole supply chain. So that's one thing. And second, about R&D, our own experience in R&D. See, India is now one of the biggest R&D centers for Valeo globally. See, we started Valeo has been in India for 25 years now, but our R&D center was started 15 years ago. We started with only 17 engineers, and we had just one mechanical department. Then we added other disciplines. Today we have about 12 disciplines. So electronics, mechanical, software, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, functional safety, everything. So this is one of the global R&D center which has all the 12 disciplines of the world. Then we are also having the second largest ADAS lab in Asia. We also have the second largest cybersecurity team in India. Then we have artificial intelligence team. This also, after France, this is the number one. And we have almost 80% of the simulation engineers are from India for the Valeo group. And 30% of global electronics team is in India. So that way we have transformed from what we were, just 17 engineers, to about 3,500 plus engineers. And we have all the competency now. Almost 95% of our teams work for the global requirements for 29 countries across the world.
It's an amazing story. You want to add something? Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as I'm sandwiched between two French companies, there is another French company in Chennai which is not really automotive, but they had very similar. They started doing 4.0 in India, and they set up a separate business where they're doing it for all their global plants, 200, 300 plants. The automotive chain is a lot more disciplined, so Valeo had the basics covered, but in this company they've actually built the platform. There's a company, they've created another company just for doing IoT implementation.
Amazing. So that, this is the India story unfolding, almost like that. So I'd like to ask you, Prashant, tell us about given the number of GCCs that are now operating in India, and he's given a sense of that. What does that mean for tomorrow's vehicles? And I'll come to you as well, Suresh. If you can start first, what does that mean for the kind of vehicles that will come out? Is that an opportunity for India to dominate the vehicle design, the software element to that, and the various elements for that?
Definitely India can contribute for the future vehicle because of 2-3 fundamental, strength of India, I'll say. First is the software industry, that's because of the content for the software is increasing. Obviously, India is a software producer, so that is going to give the advantage, number one. Number two, in terms of the labor cost or research cost, that is also another, because even when you talk about any development, it doesn't go first time right, actually. It has to go through the learning phase. For learning phase also, India is having the sufficient infrastructure that can be done. Third thing, actually, when we talk about, this is little bit negative point, but we can take it into a positive manner. When you talk about driverless car, that is the future, right? Driverless car testing can be only done in India, actually, because of the traffic condition and all the variation, right? Although it is a negative point, but when you talk about the algorithm, the data, the more complex data will give, better AI model, actually. So that can happen only in India, actually. Although it looks like a joking part, but this is a fact, actually.
One point, we are doing a study, this driverless, not driverless, actually, with ADAS. We already have a tuned vehicle with ADAS features for Honda, but now we are doing a new study for Indian conditions. We are doing a two-phase, 8,000 kilometers all around India, just to tune to the Indian road conditions.
So, Suresh, from your perspective, again, now I think we're going to be talking about French companies all through the day today. So give us a sense of what this means for the India capabilities of a French company and how you could develop. Could that mean India becomes way too important in the scheme of things for you?
Definitely. India is currently now emerging as a global market leader, especially embracing the cutting-edge technology and also sustainable operations. And it has started to mark a new era in the global automotive segment also. But having said this, this is not going to prove real, and we cannot realize the benefit until and unless we mark upon the newer manufacturing techniques as well as the technological intervention. When I say this, it's about how do we think about the connected cars? How do we think about autonomous? How do we think about shared mobility? How do we think about electrical vehicles? All these four, CASC has been now the new hot topic for especially Indian market. But this should be married by the infrastructure, road infrastructure which we have, so that there is a hand-in-hand and also the fantastic collaboration between this technological advanced car as well as the infrastructure. Now, what is that we basically need is we need a dominant, we need a sophisticated design, we need an ultra luxurious, all three ranking row seats, right? So all these are the requirement of a customer, but this can be done through a software defined vehicles, and this is now going to define the vehicles for tomorrow. So therefore we should definitely gear up our own infrastructure, our own skill sets and capabilities to gear up and to provide this to the Indian market. Yeah, this is.
Sure. I'll just take this question to Mr. Johri and Mr. Banerjee. When we look at the global landscape of Industry 4.2 in automobile space, the adoption that is there, what is your observation about the Indian market again? As in, are we happy with the pace of adoption for Industry 4.2, in automobile sector? Is it in line with the developed markets, or what is your observation? So, any one of you can take this first.
So probably I'll go ahead. We've done a lot of Industry 4.0 deployments all across the globe right now. I think there are two very interesting, I would say, differences between how this is getting adopted in, let's say, Europe and Japan versus in India. So one is, I think what I've seen is that the Indian manufacturers, right, there is a level of cultural change that is required to implement these technologies. And I think what I've seen is the manufacturers that are embracing this cultural change, right? For example, embracing transparency of information, embracing converged infrastructure, embracing knowledge being available globally across the organization, are the people that are at the forefront of this adoption. I'm talking about companies like, for example, Procter & Gamble, right? And a lot of this has to do with the culture of the organization as it has been set. What I have generally seen is that a lot of companies in Europe already had the digitization or the documentation in place that makes the adoption of these technologies slightly easier for them. However, having said that, there are some green shoots of these cultural changes happening. I think India is at a very unique intersection where there is a China plus one that is playing out. There is a very interesting language advantage that we have as opposed to other countries in this region. And there is a very vibrant, very educated, very forward-looking youth that is just coming into the workforce, which is like very interested to adopt AI, for example, to make their life easier. So these are the key advantages that we have as an Indian populace. And obviously the part about transparency and making organizations flat and enabling faster turnaround is something that we definitely have to adopt. If we can, though, this presents a unique, I think, once in probably a lifetime opportunity for each of us to dominate global supply chains.
And now companies have started to realize the benefit of this digitization. So earlier, to be honest, it was just a fancy thing for all of us to automate and digitize. But we have started to realize the benefits of the automation in terms of this predictive, how is making everyone's life easier and simpler, making process much more simpler, making leaner and eliminating waste. So therefore, it need for sensorization, then digitize, then also moving that into an logical inferences. I think it's making everyone's life easier. I think, as you rightly mentioned, we have started this, and I think India would be evolving more on this going forward.
Mr. Johri.
Yeah, so if I look at that question, break the players down to three parts: the Indian OEMs, you have the MNC, GCCs, and their India outposts, and I say the startups. I think among Indian OEMs, there are some OEMs which I think are definitely adopting Industry 4.0 more aggressively. I think a couple of them are looking at this as a way to leapfrog. From the GCC perspective, we've already talked about the fact that India has pretty much become the leading hub for R&D. If I look at globally, there is, I don't think, a single country that has the same mass of talent and expertise that this revolution demands. And lastly, I think startups, which is where some of us are part of, is I think extremely vibrant right now. I think there is just a lot of stuff happening around various technology areas. I think if the Indian OEMs and the MNC GCCs also start tapping into that ecosystem, I think just becomes much more explosive. So I think a lot is happening, and the promise is obviously quite incredible.
I must add to that. So in this very room, there are 4 large companies and 2 startups. We as a startup work with Wheels India already, right? So you can imagine that the adoption is actually as real as 1 in 4, which is a phenomenal metric if you see classically where we are from an India standpoint.
Right. And my next question was about startups again, and you said you're working with legacy companies. So I would like to come to you, Mr. Ram. When we look at the role of the startups, in accelerating the pace of adoption of Industry 4.0 in automobile, how do you look at them?
See, definitely startups bring in not only technology, but an energy level which is very different. While we did, engage with Aniruddha's company, it was, I'll be honest, at the bequest of our customer, Maruti Suzuki at that time. But the last couple of years, I have been engaged with the startup community in Chennai as as a mentor in 3 cases, as an investor, and sometimes as somebody who brings in financial discipline as well. So, and I probably engage with at least something like 50, 60 startups. The energy level, the speed. So, one of the startups where I've also invested, the thing that caught up, I didn't approach the startup. He happened to be traveling in the same vehicle as me to an event which is unrelated to business, and he pitched. And I was taken up by the fact of how quickly he said he could implement it in my company. So he's talking about a digitization type of journey, and he said, I can do it in 2 months. I said, do you understand? We have so many machines. It's a big plant. It's not small. And he said, no, sir, we'll do it. Because it's a different matter that, you know, the bureaucracy in my company has prevented that 2-month pipe dream from happening, but it's not due to any effort. So I think the speed, the eagerness, and the willingness to take on challenges which sometimes more experienced people will say, no, that is probably slightly more complicated. So we've also tested them. We've given them challenges that we thought they cannot do. So we give them what is their vanilla, then we give them something which we feel they cannot do, and we give them something which is a stretch. So we give them 3 projects typically and then see how it works. And I'll say that they definitely stretch the capabilities of a company, probably offer it, Indian startups at least, offer it at a fraction of the cost that you would get elsewhere. And that's part of the financial discipline I'm telling them. I was telling them even with my company, one of the startups, I said, your commercial model is not going to work for you. You're solving problems for the customer gets a return. You should also charge them for that return. But I found that we engage with, I think, 8 or 9 startups at the moment. They need to be guided, and they need to be guided through the organization at various points. They get stuck up in approval processes. So you need to have somebody who's kind of hand-holding them through the process. Otherwise, in larger companies, they will get lost. If it is somebody at the top, it's more likely to happen. But we should not underestimate the bureaucracy of older companies.
Okay, so let's try and get to the design part of it and how it could possibly change. And Gaurav, I'd like to come to you. In terms of the way it can be visualized, some of the changes. So essentially the efficiencies coming by cutting down the time and also redefining the way things can be done. Design is one, and your company does do some part of that. Give us a sense of what that change could be, which can be leveraged by more established company, and keeping in the spirit of what he said about the partnership as well.
So you're talking in terms of change, in terms of how the work outside the ecosystem or within the enterprise?
I mean to say, when you're looking to design the vehicle, the visualization part of it, what used to be possibly solid state modeling,
Sure.
the early stage of that.
So, I mean, I think if you look at what maybe 3 or 4 grounding principles of what really is driving today's change essentially is software-defined connectivity, intelligence, and to a certain extent also the shift towards EV. If you look at these 3 or 4 elements is what literally is defining everything. In the past, a vehicle was designed as a combination of features inside siloed domains. Now that breaks. And that is a very, very fundamental shift in terms of how a product is conceived, it's designed, and the fact that the silos start breaking down. So I think it sort of begins there. And you've got to think in terms of, I think you asked initially about data. And all these 3 are essentially sources of data as well as extensive consumers of data of their own. So I think fundamentally, if you look at from a way automotive product was designed, it has changed. Now many companies have gone about creating separate entities that just do the software piece. Renault has Ampere, and some other companies have started setting that up. Some have chosen to do it within. So I think the act of designing the vehicle is first and foremost a cultural change. and it's partly a question of capabilities inside the enterprise. And I think second now it comes down to each company will try and attempt it in a very different manner. The second element which this creates is agility. The product life is not, it takes 3 years for a vehicle program to be executed. But the vehicle itself will undergo multiple, version changes, upgrades in its life cycle. And that's a completely different shift. So I would say these are the couple of things that will characterize it most significantly.
Sure, please.
What are the things from the design aspect? I'm just coming back to the ADAS thing. So if you talk about ADAS, you have the ultrasonic sensor, which has got an ECU. You got the front camera, it has got an ECU. Surround view camera has got an ECU. Radar, then also going for the level 3, level 4 plus ADAS. You need the LiDARs, that also has got an ECU. So this is completely decentralized. So each are independent units. Now the way forward is from decentralization going to centralized architecture. So that's that's why now we are going to the one domain controller. So instead of having decentralized ECUs, centralize the ECUs as a domain controller. And so this design itself changes. So there's all this wiring is eliminated. There's less hardware inside compared to the A plus B plus C. And also the more features can be added. So this is the movement from decentralized to centralized architecture. And also this also helps in the software defined vehicle, where you can over the air updates, you can do it in a centralized way. So these are the changes that are happening, and in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to take a big significant shift towards this.
Ashu, I have a point on that actually. When you talk about Industry 4.0 or the new technology, I could able to see there will be game changer technology, which OpenAI is coming up, text to video. They're doing the testing. The way OpenAI got success, it is more about text to take, input is take, output is. The text is going to generate the videos. Okay, conventionally we have to do the designing we have to make a 3D models. Of course, there is a lot of improvement happen actually, but not a breakthrough. Okay, so design cycle is going to do this drastically. If I want to make a design of the vehicle, I can just imagine, put into the text, and it will give the result. That is the expected output. If that's really happens, so that is going to reduce the design time, number one. Number two, there is another demand sensing tool actually, which is used by the e-commerce company like Amazon. They use the demand sensing tool for improve their forecast accuracy. What they do actually, they collect the social media data. If I am using social media, so I keep browsing the phone actually, smartphone. Whenever I take a pause actually, so what are the images there? So that is my area of interest. That is getting captured actually, and how much second I am capturing. So same thing, once the design is ready, you can imagine, you can just put on the social media and take a feedback whether this can really generate demand or not. Of course, technical feasibility and other thing, technical will still there actually, but it will reduce design time or development time plus market survey. This can happen very quickly. In today's scenario, if someone comes with a design idea, then it goes to the marketing department, they do the survey. By that time, the customer mindset is also get changed actually. And the future customer, they're very dynamic actually. They keep on changing their mindset, right? So these two technology is going to definitely help to reduce design time. And
just the last point you made, in fact, now you're able to see how a consumer is actually using your product in real time. And nothing like that has ever happened before. Your ability to inform what the next product is going to look like is something you're collecting literally every day.
I would like to add to that. So we actually are implementing the digital eye of the consumer inside manufacturing plants. So it has actually gone beyond the R&D stage right now. So what a lot of the leading manufacturers right now are doing is with AI-powered systems, they're actually introducing the point of view of the customer inside of their manufacturing lines and trying to get that feedback back into their R&D, not through marketing, but through technology, right? So this is a large-scale change in how manufacturing is happening. And these initiatives lead to quicker turnaround. The new age customer will not wait 3 years to get their next product. They will also not settle for the typical small, medium, large T-shirt sizing that's common in this industry. They want a hyper customized yellow stitch to go on a red leather seat. And that's the only way in which they will buy a car or buy any product, so to speak. And this introducing the digital eye of the consumer is something that AI is also at the forefront, and technology generally is enabling a lot of manufacturers to.
I completely second your thought, Aniruddha. I think on this aspect, actually, whatever the metrics we are chasing today as a OEM, what is that we have promised the customer in terms of quality and durability? Of course, we are put all our infrastructure resource and all our manning towards delivering the committed promises. However, I may not be wrong if I say that customer is also forcing us to put one of his KPI in our objective called as perceived quality. In a way, what he says is, boss, defects per unit is your KRA. Please add my KRA, which is called as perceived quality. What it may be okay for you might not be okay for me. So think from my point of view. That's what the customer is influencing this type of behaviors actually.
Sure. So from here, when we are talking about Industry 4.2 and a lot of digitalization that's coming into play, a very serious question of data security and security cyber attacks. One of the most pertinent questions that everyone has to, look into. And I'll open the floor for anyone to answer this question, my next question. During the pandemic years, CERT, the body that monitors India-wide security breaches and attacks, recorded 12 to 15 lakhs incidents annually. What could such a threat mean for technology-centric plants running Industry 4.2 technology? Anyone who wants to take this question first? Or Mr. Ram, if you want to.
I think as we saw just a few days back with CrowdStrike stopping flights from taking off across the world, it can be very debilitating. But to be honest, even if you look at the automotive industry in the last 3 years, there have been a number of instances where customers have been hijacked by issues. Schedules have not been released for periods of time. So it is, I think, now part of a serious part of the security threat that any data-based industry has. Protection, I think protection is also a continuous improvement activity, as they keep finding new ways and new methods of hacking the system. Companies, of course, use patches, but at the same time, it is something which has to continuously evolve, and probably at a much faster pace than at least the automotive industry is used to.
I would like to add to that. Sure. So I think one of the very interesting parts of this whole CrowdStrike thing was, I don't think many people realized how deeply embedded technology had become inside of really legacy systems, right? So, people did not realize there was this software inside their machines, right, that if stopped could stop their manufacturing line. And large automakers, as an outcome of this, had their line stopped for 8-9 hours at a stretch, which is unimaginable. And what people have also started to now realize is, now that technology is so deeply embedded due to the needs of the customer, due to the needs of digitization, there are some single points of failure that are being introduced, and people want technologies that introduce more redundancy inside of their manufacturing setups. So, asking for something like a single machine having windows is not the greatest idea out there, is something that people have started to realize. I think now a lot of security teams are working overtime to introduce redundancies into companies and use technologies that are more quickly patched. So people also now realize that if you imagine no CrowdStrike executive went to any manufacturing plant to fix their problem, right? So by the way, this was the only way to fix problems if it were not for software, right? So if this were a machine issue, you would have wanted an executive to come to your plant to do something. But that never really happened. So it was all over-the-air updates, over-the-air changes that got fixed. So people are now moving hence towards architectures, digital architectures that are a lot more robust from a failure point of view and more connected from a maintenance point of view.
So this is very essential actually if we are moving towards connected cars. Tomorrow's car would be connected cars, as I already said that, and if you are going to that, actually this cyber attack, all whatever we store is on clouds. And this data has to talk to each other between the routes, between the vehicles, between the traffic signals, and having that level of sophisticated infrastructure to place that. So therefore, while we increase the technology in terms of connectivity, we also need to have a robust mechanism, especially for India is one of the top target for cyber attack. So we need to really develop the solutions for us being completely cyber safe actually.
Which means, oh, you wanted to come, sorry.
Since we are talking about this CrowdStrike topic, I just wanted to add something. See, I think the CrowdStrike incident is not a cyber security failure. It actually is not a cyber attack either. And the lesson for the automotive industry is because we're going to have not only firmware over there updates, when we go to SDVs, we'll have continuous software delivery. The possibility of having a buggy software land in a vehicle and then just cause a malfunction is what CrowdStrike, and that's a much, much higher probability affair because everybody is paying attention to cyber security. So the idea that how do you ensure the software is delivering the same quality that you had for your rest of the vehicle is a completely new responsibility that actually comes onto the OEM.
Yeah, what it led to, what it meant to automobile OEM was that whenever this happened, right, CrowdStrike, we also focused, everyone says that we need to focus on synchronization to be more efficient and effective. When I say synchronization, we would try to bring all our suppliers near to us so that we have the seamless supply and in a very efficient way. But if we are going towards the journey, if something like CrowdStrike happened and everyone would be, all the production would be stopped. So that's how it's very, very important. While we have some positive advantage of getting into synchronization and all, however, it should be definitely backed up by the technological support actually.
Absolutely. So you want to come?
Coming back to the manufacturing space, with this high level of automation and digitization, one lacuna what is there in the manufacturing shop floor is this skill level of the maintenance team. Because skill levels of the maintenance team to handle this automation and also the softwares and any troubleshooting, those things are going to be more and more important in the future. So we have to strengthen our skill levels of the maintenance for these new domains.
Okay. So you wanted to add and then probably ask the question. Yeah.
Coming to the cyber security point actually. So from my experience point of view, it is going to happen. No one can stop that actually. So increasing the awareness among all the employee. Even if you put a world-class tool actually, we have like EDR, XDR, all the latest technology on cyber security, but there is always probability, always the attackers come with the new ideas. Awareness is very important. So giving regular training, conducting the test actually of the employee, because everybody say like, I know everything. Yeah. I cannot go and click on the wrong link actually, but it happens actually. Even attackers have become smarter actually. They know you are, the busy time, when person can become panic. Even in my case actually, I have like a lot of, spam call during the morning hours when I'm supposed to join the meeting, right? So the person make a mistake during that time actually. So they become a smarter. So same thing, we have to, give a lot of training to the employees so that this can be avoided.
So I was going to ask you about the security part of it, while I appreciate your point about this may not have been a really what it has been made out to be a security issue, but given the connected plants that we'll make with given the data rich, data producing plants that we'll make, you need security professionals. The industry doesn't have enough of them. How does the industry look to have them? Because that will be a dire need for the industry.
So that is why earlier there was antivirus. Most of the companies, they used to use antivirus. Now there is a XDR, EDR technology where the tool itself is smart actually. It can detect if something is abnormal, it immediately triggers and it immediately stop the attacks. Number one. Number two, when you talk about the technology, when you come to the IoT side actually, that's more dangerous. Here we are talking about data. If someone stops the machine actually, suppose there is a bottleneck machine, if there is a cyber attack, then definitely they can control the production. Means there'll be lot of losses can happen actually. So IoT, there is a different cyber security is required. There are the hardwares are available in the market where it can be plugged. When we connect the machine with the cloud or any data center, there is always probability. Currently, all the present machine, it is a PLC based actually. So no one can really interface with that. When we connect, as soon as we connect machine with the data actually, there is a probability something can come in actually. So that needs to be addressed actually. And again, when we talk about, so there has to be two different networks actually. This is what is our experience. So ERP network or the IT network has to be separate. And when it comes to the OT, it has to be separate. So that even if there is something goes wrong actually, probability it will only affect 50% of the network, not 100%.
Mr. Ram, I'll come to you again. When it comes to legacy companies, okay, I wanted to understand from an industry perspective, are legacy companies ready for mass digitization? Because there's a lot of standardization issues, integration with the legacy system, capital expenditure. So what is your take on that?
See, to answer you, to start off with, in the automotive industry, for example, traceability was the first thing that drove it, because end customers wanted the traceability to be very, very specific, ideally on a part by part basis, then linking that with all critical processes. So that was actually when a lot of auto component companies at least started the digital transformation, and it was done at the bequest and based on what the end customer wanted. There is another digital transformation which is taking part, which is what all of us refer to as Industry 4.0, which is more related to efficiencies and building efficiencies. And it can go from very basic output, OEE, capture, to even things like preventive maintenance, assessing even if the quality is within the spec, assessing that the tool is wearing out faster than you expected based on the results that you're getting, and adjusting the preventive maintenance schedules for those. There's a significant amount of work which can be done, and it has to be. It's not a standard, because you're really talking about old machines. I have machines in my factory which was set up in the factory started production in 1962. I'm pretty sure the machines operated at least for 30 years before that, which are still operating now. We might have changed every single thing in the machine over the course of this period, but it's still functioning. So and it's functioning in a productive manner. So the basic thing is, we are very good at patching. We have PLC based machines, as Prashant said, but we also are very good at making these additions, and you can just keep going on and on. I want to comment about something that Aniruddha said, which is very important. The IoT system and a database system also is a very democratizing force, because essentially it cuts out lot of the work that used to be done by a supervisor can be made fairly autonomous by the system. So, for example, if you on a press or something, you put heat temperature sensors and vibration sensors, the maintenance guy can get a phone call from the system, not from a person. The system itself can call him and say, boss, there's a problem here, it's getting heated up and the noise vibration is above your LCL, UCL, it's beyond that. So you have to come and see it. So a lot of this type of automation actually democratizes the entire system and reduces layers in an organization. So you create a flatter organization through the whole digital experience. But there is still, as you said, in larger organizations, while at a management level you're open to it, there is a certain amount of resistance. Still, people see the benefits. Once you have success stories, you have to actually advertise the success stories which are there to other people, and then slowly they look at adapting.
So Varun, your question was basically on the legacy-based company. So my point of view is that the question is applicable even for non-legacy-based company. So what I mean exactly here is that earlier we used to focus on gaining competitive advantage through top quartile performance in terms of cost, in terms of service, in terms of asset management. And if we carefully look at that, there is one more success measure which was added called as agility during the pandemic situation, right? So that's how things started to evolve. But today, if we carefully look at, the way I feel is that sustainability and resilience is now perceived as the most important performance measure in any industry. When I say that we need to have, in these complexities, we need to have a real-time, a system which can throw us a light saying that a machine calls us and says, hey, look, there is a problem which is going to happen. So the real-time visibility, then the technologies which will help us for traceability. Traceability is nowadays not a good to have. It became a must to have. Now it's a regulatory item. So the technologies for traceability, the technology for trackability, this is going to change the game for Indian manufacturing companies actually. Therefore, we need to endorse and acknowledge these technological changes.
See, this whole thing, where this industry 4.0, see, earlier we were talking about defects in percentage many decades ago. Then it became PPM. Now everybody is talking, customers asking zero defect. So in that case, you should have the most automated line with the best traceability. And it should be, I would, to summarize, Industry 4.0 is lesser and lesser supervision, as Srivats also was saying. The supervision should go down and the layers also will come down.
Okay, so software-driven vehicle or vehicles of tomorrow, whatever 2, 4 or whatever number of wheels it has. So are we looking at, because we started the conversation with that, the mobile phone, So are we looking at software-driven vehicles? So what then, the two startups I'd like to ask here, both of you, is the differentiator between two products visibly, if I were to talk of? If everything is happening on the air or over the air, how will the brand differentiate its product?
I think that's frankly anybody's guess, because a lot of it will evolve. I think we have to look at parallels on what happened in other industries, and always the first one that comes to mind is the iPhone moment, and what unfolded after that. Is Tesla the iPhone moment in the auto industry, and is we're going to have some Nokias along the way? I think that's something we will see. But I think the challenge I feel is this way. See, if you look at from a consumer experience perspective, everybody today goes in and plugs in an Apple or an Android OS. A lot of the customer experience on the infotainment is it between the consumer and Apple, or is it between consumer and the OEM? Question number one. Then there's a distinct lifestyle element of a vehicle. A vehicle is not just the music you consume, it is a lot more to it. And there is obviously the whole element of safety, security. So an auto is an experience in itself. So I personally don't think the phone example translates. But there is ample opportunity. I think the question is, which organizations have the ability to stitch together this kind of magical combinations, and how fast can they turn it around to respond to customer needs, I think that will probably separate the winners from the loser. And some people will make aggressive bets, some may probably play conservative, and we'll see what happens. It's
So
a tough front.
while I'll not hold you to it, Nokia was #1 phone maker globally for 14 years before we know what happened to it. So don't need to take any names, but probably you can give some sense.
Actually one of the key trends that I see in products nowadays is like personalization, right? So earlier it was assumed that a product will work in a large set of markets and a large set of consumers. But I think over a period of time, what people have realized is the only way to differentiate, even in the greatest products that I use, is how well suited is that product for my specific needs, right? So I am visiting Chennai on Wednesday. So when my iPhone says good morning on Wednesday, does it tell me Chennai's weather or not, right? So that's my basic expectation from a phone. And I think the way that this translates into cars are also something similar, right? So I think already in the premium cars, there are memory modes and there are specific customizations for drivers. There are also specific customizations for markets. I was just alluding, I know at least one large automaker who changes the pressure of the tire based on where the car gets driven, based on the terrain conditions. I know other automakers that set the default temperature of the cars based on the particular geography in which the cars go. So that's the trajectory that we are on, where I think the products that we use and the cars that we ride in are going to become extremely personalized for our tastes. I'm already seeing this happen in Europe, a bunch of the other economies, and also I'm seeing this honestly in a lot of the companies we work in Southeast Asia, where I'm seeing the kind of metal being used slightly different to give that different thud when the door closes, right? And also for all of this personalization to be extremely large scale and still personalized based on India versus Bangladesh versus Nepal, etc., etc.
Yeah, on a lighter note, actually, the personalization and sophistication has gone to such a level. One fine day, we would not be surprised to hear, of course, from my own personal note, saying that I also drive my car, which means I can do everything. I do everything in my car. I choose all the features, and I also drive my car. So that would be the future of the technological driven cars.
Okay, so while we are talking about the industry, and for whatever reason, we have our conversation been around cars, while India is one of the largest producers of two-wheelers as well in the world, second largest, if I remember correctly. One issue that cuts across all what will happen in the future is sustainability. And I'd like you to come in, Srivats, and mention about what needs to drive or how do businesses need to think differently from the top?
So a couple of points. The Indian government also has a net zero target, although it's fairly far away. For a lot of manufacturers who are selling notably into Europe, Europe has a Euro 2030 target, which is there. So exporters, by and large, have been audited. If you look at sustainability audits, I'm just going back 2 years or 3 years, my company, there were 2 customers who audited us. This year there's 16. No addition, I'm not talking about new customers. Existing customers, it's the number of people who do a detailed sustainability audit has gone up significantly. Couple of points I'd like to mention. So at the end of the day, the customers are specifying this because their end customers expect it. So the end customer in a lot of these markets expect to have sustainable products, expect the customers to ensure that their value chain is offering that. And even as a tier 1 supplier, they expect me to ensure my value chain is also offering that. So it goes fairly deep. A couple of points I'd like to mention. One is when you start looking at it, where manufacturing, automotive is operations are largely manufacturing. So manufacturing guys are used to looking at detail. And in the past, yes, we also used to look at energy consumption, But if you really focus on it, you can actually squeeze a lot of efficiencies from the system, largely because if you're open to new technologies with either, there's significant new technologies which can save costs, reduce your energy consumption, reduce your wastages. If you go into circularity of byproducts that come from your system. So there is a treasure trove to be explored purely in terms of efficiency and cost. No doubt there is a point beyond which you will not get a return also. You can take it to extremes, but we are at the very early stages in terms of sustainable manufacturing. I will say not only in India but the world over. So as a result of which there are enough low-hanging fruits which will give Indian businessmen who look at return that satisfaction that they can do. It is probably one of the relatively less explored areas, and I think purely from efficiency resource utilization viewpoint, there is a tremendous amount that can be done. And here you have to be open to. I've learned that working with startups, working with people who have a different focus than your regular company guys can actually add a lot of value.
See, actually, if you carefully look at the per capita CO2 emission in India compared to other countries, we are very, very less actually. So this makes us to sometimes think that looking at the carbon roadmap of what India has right now, sometimes it feels that we are over-investing for something which is not even necessary now. So that's always there's a trade-off between whether to choose this or to be how do we proceed in this journey, or maybe it in terms of water consumption, it depends of energy reduction, all those stuff and all. So we are going into green power, so on and so forth. So many things which we are looking from a sustainability point of view today. The entire. But one point what I would like to convey is that I may be wrong completely, but still. This level of sensitization needs to be given to all tier 2, tier 3 level of suppliers, so that the entire ecosystem should partner for the overall sustainability point of view. That's what we would like to next further take it up.
From value side, we have a global target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Out of that, 45% will be achieved by 2030. We are also, and in India, we are aligning to this target. So what we have done is in all our Chennai plants, we are buying wind power, which caters to 90% of the energy needs. And the plants in Pune, we have put solar panels, but that only 25% of the energy is covered. And also the Sanand plant, we have solar panels. So our goal is to go for 100% renewable energy. So that is step number one. Then all the old machines, we are changing the motors to high efficiency motors, changing the lights to LED lights, wherever the old lighting systems are there. So a lot of these energy saving measures are also taken care. And the second point was what he mentioned about the tier 2, tier 3. We are also having training sessions for our suppliers. And also measure the carbon footprint as a part of their thing. And that's about in manufacturing. Second, now we are promoting, we are also in, now we have the ICE products, but we also have the electrification products. So whether it is low voltage 48 volt solutions or high voltage for the battery electric vehicle. We are also having business with Indian OEMs, and we are promoting this product. So, that also, in a way reduces the CO2 emissions in the end. So, both ways we are working on all these spheres.
Mr. Jayakumar, I'll come back to you again. I was reading a report by Automobile Major based out of Europe. And they said that the general perception which comes to mind when we talk about Industry 4.0 in manufacturing is about you see robots on the assembly line and digitization. But according to them, the core of digitization or Industry 4.0 is people. You know, while robots are doing the repetitive jobs, it gives a chance to human workforce to build much better cars and understand the trends. What are your observation on these thoughts?
It's I come back to the more and more automation, digitization, so the factory becomes smart. So, and we will not have repetitive jobs done by operators. So we'll have more of high-end work. So that will be the shift in the workforce in the future in the plants. But of course, you know, again, I come back to this point on investment. When we deploy all this Industry 4.0, this also comes with the cost. So, you know, there's a scale required to make it cheaper in mass adaptation. So wherever there's a high investment is the first step to do this, you know, apply these digitization, robotization. And then we deploy this as the cost reduces, and also deploy it in all our supply chain with our suppliers also.
Okay, so software-driven vehicle or vehicles of tomorrow, whatever 2, 4 or whatever number of wheels it has. So are we looking at, because we started the conversation with that, the mobile phone, you know? So are we looking at software-driven vehicles? So what then, the two startups I'd like to ask here, both of you, is the differentiator between two products visibly, if I were to talk of? If everything is happening on the air or over the air, how will the brand differentiate its product?
I think that's frankly anybody's guess, because a lot of it will evolve. I think we have to look at parallels on what happened in other industries, and always the first one that comes to mind is the iPhone moment, and what unfolded after that. Is Tesla the iPhone moment in the auto industry, and is everybody, we're going to have some Nokias along the way? I think that's something we will see. But I think the challenge I feel is this way. See, if you look at from a consumer experience perspective, everybody today goes in and plugs in an Apple or an Android OS. A lot of the customer experience on the infotainment is it between the consumer and Apple, or is it between consumer and the OEM? Question number one. Then there's a distinct lifestyle element of a vehicle. A vehicle is not just the music you consume, it is a lot more to it. And there is obviously the whole element of safety, security. So an auto is an experience in itself. So I personally don't think the phone example translates. But there is ample opportunity. I think the question is, which organizations have the ability to stitch together this kind of magical combinations, and how fast can they turn it around to respond to customer needs? I think that will probably separate the winners from the loser. And some people will make aggressive bets, some may probably play conservative, and we'll see what happens. It's
so
a tough front.
While I'll not hold you to it, Nokia was #1 phone maker globally for 14 years before we know what happened to it. So don't need to take any names, but probably you can give some sense.
Actually one of the key trends that I see in products nowadays is like personalization, right? So earlier it was assumed that a product will work in a large set of markets and a large set of consumers. But I think over a period of time, what people have realized is the only way to differentiate, even in the greatest products that I use, is how well suited is that product for my specific needs, right? So I am visiting Chennai on Wednesday, so when my iPhone says good morning on Wednesday, does it tell me Chennai's weather or not, right? So that's my basic expectation from a phone. And I think the way that this translates into cars are also something similar, right? So I think already in the premium cars, there are memory modes, and there are specific customizations for drivers. There are also specific customizations for markets. I was just alluding, I know at least one large automaker who changes the pressure of the tire based on where the car gets driven, based on the terrain conditions. I know other automakers that set the default temperature of the cars based on the particular geography in which the cars go. So that's the trajectory that we are on, where I think the products that we use and the cars that we ride in are going to become extremely personalized for our tastes. I'm already seeing this happen in Europe, a bunch of the other economies. And also I'm seeing this, honestly, in a lot of the companies we work in Southeast Asia, where I'm seeing the kind of metal being used slightly different to give that different thud when the door closes, right? And also for all of this personalization to be extremely large scale and still personalized based on India versus Bangladesh versus Nepal, etc., etc.
Yeah, on a lighter note, actually, the personalization and sophistication has gone to such a level. One fine day, we would not be surprised to hear, of course, from my own personal note, saying that I also drive my car, which means I can do everything. I do everything in my car. It has all the features, and I also drive my car. So that would be the future of the technological driven cars.
Okay, so while we are talking about the industry, and for whatever reason, our conversation been around cars, while India is one of the largest producers of two-wheelers as well in the world, second largest, if I remember correctly. One issue that cuts across all what will happen in the future is sustainability. And I'd like you to come in, Srivats, and mention about what needs to drive or how do businesses need to think differently from the top?
So a couple of points. The Indian government also has a net zero target, although it's fairly far away. For a lot of manufacturers who are selling notably into Europe, Europe has a Euro 2030 target, which is there. So exporters, by and large, have been audited. If you look at sustainability audits, I'm just going back 2 years or 3 years. My company, there were 2 customers who audited us. This year there's 16. No addition. I'm not talking about new customers. Existing customers, it's the number of people who do a detailed sustainability audit has gone up significantly. Couple of points I'd like to mention. So at the end of the day, the customers are specifying this because their end customers expect it. So the end customer in a lot of these markets expect to have sustainable products, expect the customers to ensure that their value chain is offering that. And even as a tier 1 supplier, they expect me to ensure my value chain is also offering that. So it goes fairly deep. A couple of points I'd like to mention. One is when you start looking at it, where manufacturing, automotive operations are largely manufacturing. So manufacturing guys are used to looking at detail. And in the past, yes, we also used to look at energy consumption, but if you really focus on it, you can actually squeeze a lot of efficiencies from the system, largely because if you're open to new technologies with either, there's significant new technologies which can save costs, reduce your energy consumption, reduce your wastages. If you go into circularity of byproducts that come from your system. So there is a treasure trove to be explored purely in terms of efficiency and cost. No doubt there is a point beyond which you will not get a return also. You can take it to extremes, but we are at the very early stages in terms of sustainable manufacturing. I will say not only in India, but the world over. So as a result of which, there are enough low-hanging fruits which will give Indian businessmen who look at return that satisfaction that they can do. It is probably one of the relatively less explored areas, and I think purely from efficiency, resource utilization viewpoint, there is a tremendous amount that can be done. And here you have to be open to. I've learned that working with startups, working with people who have a different focus than your regular company guys can actually add a lot of value.
See, actually, if you carefully look at the per capita CO2 emission in India compared to other countries, we are very, very less actually. So this makes us to sometimes think that looking at the carbon roadmap of what India has right now, sometimes it feels that we are over-investing for something which is not even necessary now. So that's always there's a trade-off between whether to choose this or to be how do we proceed in this journey, or maybe it be in terms of water consumption, it depends of energy reduction, all those stuff and all. So we are going into green power, so on and so forth. So many things which we are looking from a sustainability point of view today. The entire. But one point what I would like to convey is that I may be wrong completely, but still, this level of sensitization needs to be given to all tier 2, tier 3 level of suppliers, so that the entire ecosystem should partner for the overall sustainability point of view. That's what we would like to next further take it up.
From value side, we have a global target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Out of that, 45% will be achieved by 2030. We are also, and in India, we are aligning to this target. So what we have done is in all our Chennai plants, we are buying wind power, which caters to 90% of the energy needs. And the plants in Pune, we have put solar panels, but that only 25% of the energy is covered. And also the Sanand plant, we have solar panels. So our goal is to go for 100% renewable energy. So that is step number one. Then all the old machines, we are changing the motors to high efficiency motors, changing the lights to LED lights, wherever the old lighting systems are there. So a lot of these energy saving measures are also taken care. And the second point was what he mentioned about the tier 2, tier 3. We are also having training sessions for our suppliers and also measure the carbon footprint as a part of their thing. And that's about in manufacturing. Second, now we are promoting, we are also in, now we have the ICE products, but we also have the electrification products. So whether it is low voltage 48 volt solutions or high voltage for the battery electric vehicle. We are also having business with Indian OEMs, and we are promoting this product. So that also in a way reduces the CO2 emissions in the end. So both ways we are working on all these spheres.
Mr. Jayakumar, I'll come back to you again. I was reading a report by Automobile Major based out of Europe. And they said that the general perception which comes to mind when we talk about Industry 4.0 in manufacturing is about, you see robots on the assembly line and digitization. But according to them, the core of digitization or Industry 4.0 is people. While robots are doing the repetitive jobs, it gives a chance to human workforce to build much better cars and understand the trends. What are your observations on these thoughts?
I come back to the more and more automation, digitization, so the factory becomes smart. So, and we will not have repetitive jobs done by operators. So we'll have more of high-end work. So that'll be the shift in the workforce in the future in the plants. But of course, again, I come back to this point on investment. When we deploy all these Industry 4.0, this also comes with a cost. So, there's a scale required to make it cheaper in mass adaptation. So wherever there's a high investment is the first step to do this, apply these digitization and robotization. And then we deploy this as the cost reduces, and also deploy it in all our supply chain with our suppliers also.
Okay, let's try and get the two startups. Again, I'm focusing a lot on the two startups today. But look at the parallel in the fintech space, which we briefly spoke about. Fintechs are able to get to the most profitable part of the business for traditional banks, the incumbent companies, and make a business case out of that. Is that opportunity of partnering, and since Srivats mentioned about that spirit of partnership with the startups. Is that opportunity real for companies which are delivering value, the startups that are delivering value?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you see, as Mr. Srivats said, that one of the key, two of the key reasons of engaging with startups are A, they bring new technology, B, they bring new ideas, right? So I think there is for startups that are bringing technology into the manufacturing space in general and automotive in particular, there is a definite jumpstart that a lot of companies are getting by working with startups and by implementing these technologies and essentially getting ahead of their peers, right? So, for example, if you think about like traceability at a component level, understanding what kind of energy you have utilized, understanding how many parts you have utilized, or even cycle time at a millisecond level. These are all technologies that were not available even 5 years back. So there is a definite advantage for both from a new idea perspective as well as scaling the technology perspective that enables that competitive advantage, which is basically the process power to get into a lot of automotive manufacturers, which otherwise would not have been available. I also would like to allude to the fact that in doing this, a lot of manufacturers are also upskilling their workforce, right? So if you see, like specifically in our case, we automate quality inspection. So basically, a quality inspector who was earlier picking up a part, figuring out a defect and putting it into a good or a bad bin is instead now using our Deep Inspect platform to train AI models, right? Imagine how inspirational this journey is for him or her personally, to go from pretty much a blue collar job of doing this inspection to using a touchscreen system and training AI models. It's an inspirational story, and this is the third level of things that I think a lot of manufacturers and the level of loyalty that generates for that organization who implements such technology is enormous. I mean, how many automotive manufacturers would let inspectors train AI models? I don't think many of them, right? So that's, I think, the third advantage.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think this whole journey towards Industry 4.0 is a journey of change for any company. And I think what startups help large enterprises do is to accelerate and become more agile, accelerate that change. Because what all of us bring is usually a new way of doing something, usually a faster way of doing something, a better way of doing something. And in a transformation journey, nobody can invent everything inside. And I think having a vibrant ecosystem of startup partners brings that ability to OEM or a tier one quite significantly, I think.
I'll come to Mr. Khairnar. So again, any automotive company which is undertaking Industry 4.2, according to some research, they said that there are 4 questions that they should ask themselves before undertaking this journey. Number 1 is, which advanced innovation will impact the auto industry the most in the next decade? What will be the future customer demands look like? Do I have the right talent to fulfill the future expectations? And how should I fund the investments needed to undertake this challenge, the digitization journey? Okay. What are your observations about this? How do you think, are these in line with what Indian companies should look at?
Let me give you some background actually. If I talk about the operational technology, when the robotization or Industry 3.0 came actually, okay, the robot was very expensive. India was not really able to justify because the labor cost is right. And that is why the low-cost automation concept came in. Instead of having the 6-axis robot, which will cost around 20 lakhs rupees, if I go with a very, most popular robot, around 20-25 lakh, if there is a need for only the 3-axis. So that is what in the operational technology. I came from the operational technology side, that is why I'm... Now when I join IT side actually, right? So same concept can be done there. And that is why we come up with a low-cost digitization. And it is, in Shriram Piston, I could able to do successfully for 2-3 reasons, actually. Earlier, there was a need to understand the syntax or coding. But because of AI, coding part is not really required, actually. If you have idea, you can just use AI and do the coding, actually. Again, apart from that, there are no-code, low-code platform which is there. So that is helping to reduce the cost, actually. That is what we call as a low-cost digitization. Number two, when we spoke about the cybersecurity, when cybersecurity comes, everybody comes with a password policy in order to protect the data, in order to... The main challenge, this is my personal experience, as you increase the digitization, you will be landing with multiple softwares, right? If I talk about supply chain or MES or ERP or other, small workflow actually, travel Appli or there may be around 100, 200 application. Over top of that, if I put the password policy, people normally put the password on the table actually. If you ask change it, so it is very important how we can do that standardization. And that is why we are coming up with that, with the DMS concept. One password, one login, that's all actually. So bringing all the small application on one platform, although it is a challenge, it looks like challenging, but it is not impossible. That is what we are doing at Shriram Piston. So that will help me in terms of reducing the cost, number one. Number two, it is helping me to maintenance cost actually. For example, if I am mentioning, keeping the data for the employees' data, for example, if I keep like say 50 softwares, everywhere we have to do the synchronization or do the manual. If it is a common, then it can happen in one go, right? So these are the small innovation. Coming to the MES, we tried like different MES actually. So almost 6 to 7 standard platform and landed with our own again solution. Of course, some of the ideas we took from the Google Map, the successful product or other product actually. When MES comes, it talks about improving the productivity. If I ask operator, okay, no, there is a 5-minute loss. Why don't you go and enter it into the system? I'm not going to improve the efficiency. I'm asking operator to do the additional work which will go further down, right? So we come up with a lot of ideas and most of them now successful. We are putting the algorithm. It is not AI based, it's more about logic based only, where the entry can be done automatically. So these are the small issues. For example, in Google Map. So most of the ideas we are taking from the global tool where it is really successful and mature. In Google Map, suppose I start morning from Noida to Delhi, automatically on the corner, it shows work. Evening, it gets swapped, right? So small innovation, it's really matter when we talk about the shop floor digitization, because I cannot ask operator or the supervisor to do the more data entry. So I'm just giving one idea, like this is what we are doing, how to minimize the entry so that right data will be captured. At the same time, it will be the quality data.
So I would like to share my experience on your question number 3, which is that do we really have that skill sets and capabilities to embrace this 4.0? Yeah, the point is really valid. This is a real valid question because as I said that every industry is now moving towards digitization and also adapting technologies. To put it straight, we have machineries, we have robots, we have so many processes. From that, we need to collect the data, which means through sensorization. We need to sensorize that, then collect those data. We need to have a data flow platform that moves those data into a digital lake, data lake platform. From that data lake platform, honestly, everyone may agree to my point that there is no dearth of data. Data is in abundance. But our ability to have that logical inferences of those data matters. So therefore, developing the skill sets of our people, which we call it as a digital citizen development program. It's called a digital citizen development program, where we identify those people who are really interested in this programs and enroll them, train them, assign them a project, small projects. Then through the RPAs of the world, everything we started to do that workflow automation, service connects, and also process automation. Now, one is we may look at developing our own internal talent, and I may be wrong, some of you may agree that every company, every manufacturing company nowadays, their second product is technology. More than we manufacture a car, we are also now into producing a technology which will help us to manufacture in a better way. So therefore, the focus is on two types of businesses. One is developing our own internal capabilities. Second is relying on industry, academia partnership, collaboration with government. And government is really pro on actually helping us out in terms of digitalization, and also startups with their ability, their invention methodology. I think this is really very key for India to be more technologically advanced country. That's a skill and capabilities.
I wanted to add one point. I think the perception I'm getting, I may be wrong, but the perception I'm getting is that Industry 4.0 is very expensive. And Jayakumar spoke about a specific case of having a completely automated line. The different degrees of automation that can be brought about. And I think in India, ultimately, our capital labor mix is very different from what it is in the West. At the same time, it's something which is changing dramatically and fast. Both capital and labor costs are changing. So we have to find the mix which makes sense. Ultimately, whatever we say, Indian business invests so that we get a return. Okay. It's a fundamental premise. And thereby, you may not get like a cookie cutter solution which has been implemented. Much larger companies like Renault, Nissan, it may make sense. Their scale is like that. But for Indian companies, you may need to find, much like what Prashant was saying, it is moving away from low-cost automation to doing the low-cost IoT, which actually makes sense and is easier to adopt in our type of organizations.
If you don't adapt Industry 4.0, like for example, automation or digitization, traceability, etc., what are the consequences of that? Suppose there's a defect and there's a recall. The penalty from the OEMs are much, much higher than your investment also. So that way, in future, with the stringent regulations on recalls, it's better to go for more and more digitization. That way, that's another consequential cost, I would say, to avoid the consequences.
So the last few minutes, so I want to focus a little bit. As Industry 4.0 started to take off, governments across the world, Germany, you saw some other European companies, you saw Singapore, you saw some other countries, they actually announced partnership. Can I continue? Yeah, okay. So they actually announced some kind of partnership, and they're working with industry. Is there something more that we can see Indian government do? Srivats, and then I'll come to you. See, because again, we're talking the wider picture, the China Plus One strategy, plus we want to build the Make in India program. So is there more that the policymaker can do which can drive the adoption of technology and the automation part?
I think at a policy level, Tamil Nadu, for example, has spoken about Industry 4.0 and digital manufacturing. There are centers of excellence which are there. They can at best provide infrastructure and access to technology or tools. Maybe they can give a policy framework that incentivizes it for MSME companies. But beyond that, I think individual companies have to take a choice. In the automotive industry, we've always been, driven by our customers. Our end customers, as Jayakumar mentioned, this important point about traceability. Traceability comes about because the cost, and even if it is expensive, and complete traceability is expensive, it is required because that is a changing dynamic of business, where right now the cost of having a failure in the field is very, very high. Of a recall, not a failure. Cost of having a recall in the field is very, very high. And I know, for example, we are also in other industry segments. There are other industry segments where they're even more than what automotive is. I thought automotive was the most punishing, but there are other industry segments where the cost of a failure can be even more exorbitant. So I think that the regulatory issue from the government, and this is actually from the government, regulatory issue driving our customers who are driving us to traceability is something which is very clear, which has come actually from the government side. The enabling part in terms of having smaller companies take advantage of technology, we do talk to our supply chain as well, but ultimately it has to make business sense. And I think the costs are not as high as what people think it is. Again, going back to the earlier point, you can always have simplified IoT solutions which give you an access and a window into your supplier at the same time is not going to be prohibitively expensive. Also, the data you get will be probably more limited than you would otherwise. So I think the government is more an infrastructure provider and a regulator, and the work actually has to be done by industry.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Please.
As Srivats mentioned, I think today we are discussing about traceability technologies, which is the need for ever. But very soon we would also be having a discussion on trackability technologies to have a better optimized supply chain operations. So therefore, maybe our next discussion would be on the trackability technologies actually.
I think I'd like to add that one of the other responsibilities of the government is to make such new technologies safe for use, right? So I think, so one of the key things that I think drives adoption of new technology is the regulation around that, so that our privacy and safety is very important, and privacy and safety is extremely important in manufacturing industries. So I think, laws globally around, the privacy of information that we collect, right, and laws that are also being enacted in India as we speak right now, will also drive up the adoption of such kind of technologies. So if, for example, an operator, the fear of using, of AI collecting private information can be regulatorily removed, then I think that adoption will also go up. If you all remember, one of the key advertisements of iPhone is the fact that it's so private, right? And your information stays with you. And I think there is a fear all around, because obviously a lot of the capabilities of AI are unknown. There is a fear that more information is being collected. And the government can definitely come in from a regulatory perspective to ensure that these technologies are used as the tools that they are supposed to be. So I think that's another place where the government can play a very important part.
One of the things in the automation, so one example I'll tell you, one special rivet we're getting from European supplier. And we are trying to develop that with Indian supplier. We are not able to match the price of that European supplier. Surprisingly, it's a high-cost country. This is a low-cost country with tier 2 supplier. So when we went into details, we found that the level of automation was very, very high, and he was getting in few seconds that part, whereas our cycle time was some 4, maybe 10 times cycle time because of the step process and all that. So automation, that's why we need the volumes and scale. So he is supplying to several different countries, and there's millions of parts he's producing, and he's able to justify that investment and the kind of automation, and is able to produce at a very, very low cost. So automation, of course, the capex is high, but when you have a volume, it really reduces cost. And also the question on the government intervention, I think the industry 4.0, one aspect could be it can reduce labor. It can, because of the kind of automation.
My God, I thought it was a problem. Labor could be a problem in the NCR part of the world. I didn't think Tamil Nadu will be talking that. Anyway, thank you so much, gentlemen. I'll just wrap up some of the important points that kind of stayed with me, and I was making notes as we spoke, as I heard all of you speak. One of the first things that caught my attention was this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Indian companies to have some sort of domination in global supply chains. The partnership with startups, that kind of also caught my attention, with a cultural change needed for it. We spoke of that. Perceived quality of the products, again, that was something, and the digital eye of the consumer in manufacturing that you mentioned. Sustainability, I think the more we talk, the less it appears. So working with startups can also give you fresh ideas and the agility part of it. And of course, traceability, that became a very important part of the conversation. Okay, looks like my audio is gone. My voice can't do too much more. Anyway, I'll try and, can you hear me? Oh, looks like there's some problem. Okay, so traceability, that's very important because of the sheer impact it can have in terms of the fines that go with it and the regulatory challenges. So all of that and so much more. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. Thank you indeed. Please. Thank you so much.